Today I want to talk about another layer, another perspective to what's happening right now during this time on the planet. And this comes from our ancestors, the wise men and women from all over the world, from all different cultures. And you have to remember that we are, in essence, one human family. We are all traced back to one source. We are all one. And so this knowledge transcends all boundaries, all limitations, boundaries of any physical limitations, and therefore this knowledge is for all of us. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Leeor Alexandra. Welcome to the Baby Elephant community. In this channel we talk about spirituality, self-development, and so much more. And today I want to talk about what's happening here on this planet, but with a bit of new information that I have found to be really relevant during this time. It's actually from a book that was written in 2011. So when I read from it to you, I think it's going to be outstanding. It's going to be crazy, basically, how relevant it is to exactly what we're going through today. And I think we've reached the time, the precise time that this book talks about. So this is what I talk about in this video is something to consider. And as with any information, I really encourage discernment. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But what we're going to be talking about again is the 26,000 year cycle. But I want to get more in depth about it and what we're experiencing right now. In relation to this 26,000 year cycle, you may have heard of this. This has everything to do with the Great Awakening. This has everything to do with the consciousness shift on the planet, because we are nearing the end of this cycle. So many sages, and this is all quoted in the book, The Time of the Black Jaguar. I'll link that below for you. It's incredible. They believe that we are at the end of this 26,000 year long cycle. They say that we are completing the cycle of our present humanity, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. This is the quote. The elders say that the lack of preparation for the change that is coming is alarming. I think that is perfectly relevant to where we are right now. Only 9 short years later, we have been faced with an epidemic in which we're zero prepared for it. The financial system, our government system, societies, medical systems, all our system, all of them, they weren't even close to being prepared for what we've come to experience in the last few months. This unprecedented time. In the book, Arkan Lushwala writes, "It is time to change. And if we do not change, something stronger than us, it's going to do that for us." That something stronger has come here in full force. The shutdown of full countries. Internationally, we've been experiencing a quarantine, shutdown of economies. The spread of this pandemic, we've been given that something stronger because we weren't able to do it ourselves, not in time. So according to the ancestral nations of the world, these 26,000 years are a cycle of one complete humanity. We are on the 4th humanity, so there have been 4 humanities before us, and there will be more humanities after us. During this time of 2020, many of these cycles that we experienced 26,000 year long cycles, 500 year long cycles, 2,000 year long cycles. All these cycles are all closing at the same time during this time or near this time. That's why this change has been so drastic. That's why everything we've been experiencing has been so surreal and movie-like, because a huge change had to occur one way or another. And we're experiencing this collectively. You know, when there's a tragedy for one country, we all feel it, but we don't go through it the same way that that country goes through it. Right now, we are feeling everything together. We are all in on this. Now, within each one complete cycle of humanity, 26,000 year long cycle, we experience 3 times. So first we have the time of creation, and this is the time that we only get to read about in books now. It's a time of myths and magic. During the time of creation, humans don't know that their creative capacity can be limited. They don't see it as limited. And because of that, it isn't limited. It's supported by the cosmic forces, and humanity is designed and built with great power and great happiness and joy. This is the time in which human beings are guided outwardly by the divine. The divine is loudly guiding them and with them. After the time of creation, we have the time of conservation. That's the time that we're in now, that we're actually finding ourselves at the end of, if we're not at the beginning of the next cycle, which I'll talk about in a moment. During this time, darkness is introduced in order to create duality and balance out all the light and all the beauty that was created. This is the time when humanity receives intense challenges, whether it comes to poverty or war or famine or disease, lack, just clashing against one another. And because of this, humanity must become stronger as we deal with these difficulties. And the thing about this time is that we're dealing them seemingly on our own, because we have begun to forget that the divine exists and that we're always protected. But the divine has only become quieter, step back a little bit to allow humanity to experience what it needs to experience. In moments during the time of conservation, the divine might only even step in to perform miracles, or for those who truly believe. To stay connected to the divine during this time requires effort. It requires sitting with yourself in meditation, in prayer, in gratitude, feeling love, feeling the blessings, and having faith, because our outward circumstances for the last however many thousands of years have not shown that we're so protected and guided, right? And because of that, the ones who believe despite the evidence will receive the evidence. I think that anybody who's had a really mystical experience could back that up, could agree with me that the divine definitely shows you, like, look, I exist. Here's this, here's a miracle, here's this, here's that. And this can come in small, tiny little ways and in huge, life-saving, miraculous ways. But the divine is always there, never leaves us. If we come from the divine, we return to the divine, to great love. Some people have a really difficult time during this lifetime, or during the several lifetimes that they experience during the conservation, and they really suffer, they really struggle. And some people go through it dancing, laughing, singing, and filled with love. What I took away from that teaching is that most of us actually do both, going from challenging lifetimes to easier, more loving lifetimes. And even in the challenging lifetimes, we can change the way that that goes down, and we could find our faith and find that laughter and find those dances. So during the time of conservation, humans become more conservative rather than creative. They become more educated rather than spontaneous. And this is neither good nor bad. It's just that this is where we find ourselves, and that's going to be expressed in different ways depending on where humanity goes, right? And we have seen where it goes, and while we have great technological innovation and innovation in medicine, and people are living longer, life is really much better. There are still a lot of inequalities, and there's still a lot of things that must be balanced out and that have to be balanced out, but that only exist the way they exist because of the greed and the negative influence of some humans, if that makes sense. And then the rest of us just kind of agree to the terms and conditions of the life that we're born into. So a balancing is required. Most of all during this time, we forget about magic. We think it's just nonfiction, it's a story. We forget about how powerful we are, where we come from. We struggle. We believe death is the end. We weep over losses, whether it be loss of people or loss of material possessions. We become attached to material possessions. We become attached to our identities. That only happens because we forget who we are and where we come from and what we're capable of, and how we never leave one another. We just continue on. This time of conservation also happens to be the longest of the 3 mini cycles within the big cycle. In the book, the author says that the elders believe that it comes to an end when the beginning has been completely forgotten. So it's very possible that we've actually exited the time of the conservation already, because it looks to me, from my perspective, like we are entering the next period, which is the time of renewal. Talk about that in a minute. At the end of conservation, however, there's evident corruption by people in positions of power. And I quote from the book, leading to an epidemic loss of human values. An epidemic loss of human values. May I remind you that in January, many of our US government leaders knew about what would happen in just a few months to humanity and to our society and to our economy. And so they sold massive amounts of their stocks. They dumped their stocks to reap in profit because they knew that in just a few months, the economy, the stock market, Wall Street, all of it would come crashing down. Rather than thinking about how to prepare the people, how to protect the people, they prioritized protecting and preparing their finances. Sounds extremely relevant, right? It's pretty much on board, and this was written 9 years ago. So I have to quote the next part because it's too perfect. The tension continues to grow until humanity becomes like a womb ready to explode or a woman ready to give birth. Remember the name of this pandemic that we're experiencing right now? That I'm not going to say the name of it here because the YouTube overlords will censor me. But what it means in Latin is crown. It's a crowning. It's a birthing of a new time. So again, the tension continues to grow until humanity becomes like a bomb ready to explode or a woman ready to give birth. And that's where we found ourselves. Not ready to explode, but a woman ready to give birth. A birth to the renewal, to the new world. I do believe that with our collective efforts, all the meditation that's been happening, all the prayer, all the connection, all the spreading of good news, all the awakenings, all the shifts to fourth and fifth density from three-dimensional thinking, I think we've entered, or are at least beginning to enter, the time of renewal. The time of renewal is the last stage of humanity. So the time of renewal comes with a need for purification so that life may continue. As we've stayed indoors, we've seen a purification of our earth. We've seen what happens when humans stop creating what we've been creating for at least the last 150 years. As we've hurt our planet less, as we've injured Pachamama less, in just weeks, she has already begun to renew herself. I'm seeing that in my own city for sure. The way that nature has taken over the suburbs is absolutely mind-blowing. I'm curious if that's the same way wherever you're from. It might not be as apparent as it is here, but it's like there are parking signs that are now completely covered with leaves that have grown around them. I don't know how all this has happened in like a month, but it's happening. It looks like a fairy wonderland out there. It's fantastic. It's so beautiful. And I hope that it continues to go like that. Now, again, to quote from the book that was, again, written before this time right now. I wrote this down. This is the time of a purifying chaos in which lies are seen for what they are, and there's a collective craving for returning to the simplest truth. Is that not mind-blowing? As people shift into 4D consciousness, they're seeing all the lies they've been privy to in 3D, the lies that they haven't been privy to, the lies that they've been told this is what life is, and they're starting to realize and to see like this is not what life truly is. There's so much more to life. There's so much I wasn't seeing. I was kept in the dark for so long. The lies are coming out. Everything is coming out. I want to finish this by reading directly from the book. At this confusing time, old group and ethnic identities have become debilitated, and millions of humans lack clarity about their future and their true place in the world. The social pillars and belief systems of the conservative past are broken, and the new pillars are not built yet. There has been a great deal of learning during the struggles of this conservative time, but the time to harvest has not arrived yet. The collective state, which is similar to being in labor, contains pain, fear, and great hopes all mixed up. Is that not exactly how we're feeling right now? Pain, fear, and great hope all mixed up? This time is the most difficult, and it also offers the most opportunities for those who seek their liberation from old mental prisons. This time is somehow dangerous for those who resist because its energy is fierce and incontestable. It also has the potential to quickly bring back to the light all those who move their will in favor of real changes. Now is when the big change happens, so that a new time of creation may arrive and find hearts that are clean and open to see and support the unfolding of a new world still unknown. That is the Great Awakening. We are ushering in an era of renewal. We're experiencing renewal right now. We've been going through thousands and thousands of years of the conservative, of forgetting our light, of forgetting who we are. And now the renewal time, according to this book, the renewal is pretty fast. It's the fastest period of time. It's going to go by like that. And with it, it's going to usher in creation. I would give so much to be on earth to experience the creative period, the creation cycle. Now again, always be discerning about things that you learn, but I think that this was just something fascinating to dive deep into, and this comes from all our ancestors. the ancestors of this planet, and the indigenous people who are still upholding those ancient traditions. This is how they are living their lives with this knowledge. What does that change for you? Does it confirm to you that everything you've been doing to keep your vibrations up and to be grounded and connected and live in love rather than in fear during this uncertain time was exactly what you were meant to do? Because for me, that's what it validates. Not that I felt like I needed external validation, but to see it prophesized in such a way and explained in such a way. It feels like the truth. Thank you for joining me in this little discussion. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this. If you liked this video, if it was helpful, if it brought you a sense of peace, please give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody who could use it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate if you would join the family, the baby elephant community. I love you. Thank you for watching. And until next time, keep your vibrations way, way, way up.